Hello, I'm Jerrigrace Lyons, and I am the founder and director of Final Passages in California, Sebastopol, in fact, California. I will tell you a little bit more about that when I am done here. My sponsor is, and this is a long one, Beyond Yonder Virtual School for Community Death Caring in Canada. That's a mouthful. And Cassandra Yonder is the person who started this organization, a virtual school for community deaf caring. She happens to be one of our graduate students and lovely person who homesteads with her husband, and I think she's got 5 kids now, and a whole farm filled with animals. And she got very interested in death care because of homesteading and homeschooling her kids. So the Beyond Yonder School arose from a desire to empower Canadians to take a participatory role in caring for the dying, dead, and bereaved. Her organization recognizes that wisdom resides in the heart of the learner, and they've designed a program that brings up to 13 students into an intimate shared educational experience. It's an online course, but students find themselves forging surprisingly deep connections considering that the program is virtual. Being an online program also offers the benefit of engagement with 10 fantastic leaders in the field from across the country, adding value to their core 12-week program. They focus on the value of reflective practice and learn to lead with vulnerabilities in service of advanced planning, being present to dying, witnessing death, guiding post-death care, leading ceremony, and honoring grief. Cassandra Yonder, and she is in Nova Scotia. Lovely person. That is our sponsor. Yay, Cassandra. Thank you for being in the world. And I have seen her care. She has sent me pictures of her caring for their animals, doing home funerals with dogs, horses, other animals, as well as some neighboring people who died. She's done home funerals for them as well. And for us, Final Passages, we began our journey about 23 years ago when a dear friend of mine died, who was a Reiki master and beautiful woman. And she was a nurse, and by day she took care of an older woman. And then she went to work one day to take care of the lady and then wasn't feeling well. They called 911. The paramedics came. They were unable to resuscitate her, and she died that morning. She was 56 years old. She had a history of asthma, which is probably what led to her sudden death. But she had also written out instructions of how she wanted us to care for her, and that was to bring her body home from the hospital and have this beautiful initiation of what I later termed home funeral. My friend Janelle and I, who co-directed, we wrote a guidebook, and we came up with the term home funerals, and that has been used ever since. And that experience profoundly affected me, and in a most amazing and deep and intimate way, which then led me down this journey of wanting to let people know everywhere about the option of home funerals. Because what we found everywhere we went was people said, "Is that legal? Can you really do that?" And we didn't know until Carolyn's home funeral that we could, but we found out that it was in fact legal. And ever since then I've been guiding and have guided about 400 families with their family-directed home funerals. So today I was asked to come and speak to you about pet home funerals, because in my journey to the UK, and meeting Claire back in 2009, we ended up talking about some of the pet home funerals we had discovered and found out about from friends, and we offered a class in pet home funerals. And Lee found that out, and then she asked me if I would share something on pet home funerals. So I have, let me start with a series of questions. First question is there anybody in this room who has never had a pet? Okay. I suspected that, but I thought I would ask. Okay, next question. Maybe I better put my glasses back on for this. Have any of you had any of these pets in your life as an owner or caretaker, or however term you want to use when you have a pet living with you? A short-finned eel. Now let me see a show of hands on this. A macaw, African elephant. Let's see. Oh my goodness. Galapagos giant tortoise? Nobody? No? Okay. How about a bowhead whale? No. Greenland shark? No? No? Okay, a quahog? How about a jellyfish? Okay, so most likely you will have pets. How about dogs? Okay, how about cats? All right, okay, so most likely you are going to outlive your animal. These animals I just named off live anywhere from 70 years to 500 years old. So if you don't have any of those as pets, then more than likely you might have an opportunity to honor your pet when they die. And how many people feel like they have a relationship with your pet that's closer to you than most humans? I think that, and I'm sure that you believe that animals play such an important role in our lives. I've read a number of books about having pets and why they come into our life. And I'm of the leaning that many of them come into our life to mirror or reflect to us things we need to learn, just as much as any other human relationship we have. That they're here to teach us lessons, help us learn, help us grow, help us move through difficult and challenging times. They fill just a huge, huge place for us in our life. As a companion, as someone that brings us joy, and somebody who can, not somebody, but an animal that can bring us unconditional love, which is very difficult for humans to do. We seem to have conditions in how we relate, and we fall into patterns. But animals, they can fall into some patterning, but they mostly are so forgiving. No matter whether they're abused or treated well, they still come back wagging a tail or licking us or sleeping next to us in the bed. And they, in fact, want to show off how, how grateful they are, and will bring us little gifts like the tail of a squirrel that my cat laid at my bedside just to let me know how wonderful she was and how much she loved me, and she was willing to share. So I have lots of funny stories about animals. I had started early in life with birds. Our family got parakeets, and my father thought it would be really fun to teach the parakeet how to talk English words. And the parakeet learned a lot of them and would just go on and on and on all the time. And he would teach it things like the usual, good morning, what's up, all those usual things that people teach their birds. He also taught it how to say, hurry up, Jerry, because I apparently had a slower pace in my family than the rest of my family. So that was annoying, to say the least. And when it got sick, my mom carried it around in her bra to keep it warm next to her breast. That's what the vet told her to do. And so she carried it around next to her, and he got better and gave it some drops. I don't remember what, but we find ways to communicate with our pets. How many people here feel they can communicate well with your pet? Yeah? And do some of you, usually even if we aren't blessed to be an animal communicator, some people actually talk to the animals. I'm sure you've seen some of the YouTubes that are out there. It's amazing. People can ask the animal what's going on with them, why are they depressed. I even found out recently that animals can get Alzheimer's. We were talking to a neighbor just the other day, and she told me her dog had Alzheimer's, and it was wandering, and she ran and grabbed him. And I said, really? I didn't even know animals could get dementia, or I guess she said dementia. And I said, well, how do you know it has dementia? And she said, well, it just sometimes goes into a corner and stands there and looks at the corner and doesn't move. And so she has to go and pull the dog away. And so they get some human conditions as well. But what I've read about, there was not only read about, but there was a woman that we just went to a conference up in Portland that was called the Afterlife Conference. And this woman was an animal communicator, and she was very excited when she started out on her career to help animals to get better. And what she found out when she started talking to the animals was that the animals didn't feel that necessarily that they had anything wrong with them, but that they were trying to point out something to their humans. And they had taken on certain behavior patterns, even illnesses, to get their attention because they saw the humans' behavior and thought that it was not helpful, not good behavior, not moving in the right direction, not evolving. So she would actually then have to go back and talk to the human about their problem. This is what your dog or this is what your cat communicated to me. And it was really difficult for her. She thought it was going to be easy. She'd just go and talk to the animal, find out what's wrong with it, and that would take care of the problem. But the dog or the cat or whatever the animal was saying, no, it's my human. They have the problem. So you have to help resolve that. So I have recently, we haven't had our own pet because Mark and I travel a lot, but we shared a cat for a long time with our landlady and landlord, and it was her cat to begin with. And Jax liked to be in our house a lot because she worked full time for a long time, and so Jax would hang out with us. And when we did Reiki, Jax would come over and jump up on our massage table and wait to receive Reiki. and would wait to receive his turn of getting healed. So we love animals, and today what I did do was bring some beautiful slides of a couple of home funerals that some friends have done with their animal, and then I want to hear from some of you. I have a couple people who are going to come up and tell their story. But I'd like to see if you have some stories too to share in the group, because I know all of you probably do. And then maybe if we have time, we'll go around and everybody can speak the name of an animal that has crossed over that you want to send a blessing to. Okay, so is this where I'm going to stand over here on this podium? Okay. So my friend Sally Shannon had a dog named Spinner. And do I just do the arrows, Mark? I can just do the arrows.
Sure.
And this one down here. Okay. So Spinner was a rescue dog from the Milo Foundation in Oakland. She didn't know how to play well with others, probably because she was a street dog. And for such a little dog, she was very fierce. She was found in the parking lot of a Target discount store. No tags, no one looked for her. So there she was. These are all the names that Spinner was called. We tried many names: scalawag, swimmer, scooter. I once cremated an animal accompanied by her herbs and a long list of his names. But she ended up Spinner because she had a hard time learning to walk with the leash and harness. She could spin out of 2 harnesses when she saw something that made her freak out, which was just about anything. And she only weighed 9 pounds. We used a luminaria bag, usually used at Christmas time, the candle inside the battery tea light with a flickering flame, and we left it flickering when Spinner was alone. It was her night light. So here we are. This is Spinner died. She wasn't sure what the diagnosis was, but Spinner's belly swole out, and the vet had some guesses on what it was, but wasn't really sure. And then it was a hard choice, Sally said, but she finally decided to have the vet come to their home and put Spinner to sleep. And then they used just warm tap water to wash Spinner. They used essential oils, and she even names the oils, which are Young Living oils that I also happen to use. She used one called Release for Spinner to release from her body and for us to release her to her destiny. She used Sacred Mountain to keep Sally grounded, and that's usually all the tree scents. She used lavender to relax herself and her partner Janet, who's now her wife. Euthanizing decision had been very stressful, she said. And then, so the lavender really helped with that. Tea tree oil, which is great for antibacterial. And thieves, which is also a natural form of antibacterial, antimicrobial, and fungal. No, she didn't use soap. Oh, I don't know. She had to remove stool and urine because Spinner's bowel released some stool. She used this big cutting board with towels underneath Spinner to protect the board, and a 13-gallon trash bag underneath that, so it was well protected. They used a large handkerchief to hold her jaw in place. And you can see that she has a washcloth wrapped the way we were trained. She was trained by me. So she wrapped it the way we do with humans. She released urine, so she bathed her with the warm water and then sprayed her with thieves. She said it was heartbreaking to see her tummy so white. I guess it was distended. She had been dead about 2 hours at this point. She was still flexible. The smaller the animal, the faster rigor sets in, she says. Her little tush had poo released, so she cleaned that up. She said she also expressed some poo. With my dog here, she cut a lot of the fur off around the back end of him to clean him up. Steroids were given before she died, and it made her ravenous. So she ate a lot of food, which is probably why she had so much discharge. She says it's commonly given the steroids to cats and dogs in their dying times. She continued to release more poo, and ultimately she put cotton balls in to stop the release from the bowel. She said it was very easy to turn compared to human beings, which she's helped in many home funerals. And she released some purge from her mouth as well. So there was some bleeding there. She had some of her power objects. You can see the shells in the picture nearby. It helped keep her grounded. Bathing was the most tender thing she had ever done, bathing Spinner. She loved moving her around, cradling her limbs, stroking her belly, and talking to her as she worked, telling her how beautiful she was, how much she was part of her family, and that she wished her Godspeed. She read a Navajo prayer to soar with her ancestors, to help her soar with her ancestors. Spinner bathed and ready for lying in honor in this picture. Her front feet are in the most lifelike and natural position. Her beloved partner, Janet, has her first experience with home funerals. So Sally's been doing home funerals with me for quite a while, and Janet never had attended one. And though she supported Sally, she really didn't quite understand what a home funeral was about until Spinner died, and she had Janet participate and feel Spinner's cold body, and also, that he was not moving and not breathing. And so Janet got an experience of feeling what it was like to take care of it, and both loved Spinner tremendously. So it was a familiar, loving touch, and they groomed her wiry fur when she was alive, as when she was alive. They groomed her fur, and in life and in death. And I'm so glad we did it. It was so intimate. There was feelings of completion, time to get used to the idea that she was dead. It was a process, not a punctuated event. They got to take care of her, and they felt that they really could be with her in this loving way. So, and don't you love, let's see, I guess, it's this next picture. What? Okay. So here is Spinner with this beautiful coat somebody made for her, and they put that over her. This was the first stage. After washing her, they used blue ice under her, but had to change it every 5 hours. She recommends Techni ice. She says it's going to last a lot longer, and that's what I find too. But I don't think she had any Techni ice at the time. And then they created this beautiful altar with plants and flowers, her traveling coat, feathers for her to fly, treats to tell her what a good girl she was and is. She said she thinks she'd add twinkling lights next time. And there she says you can see the bloated belly. caused her head to hang a little at an awkward angle, so they folded a washcloth under her head. You can see there's a little bloody discharge from her mouth, so she said next time she'd use a dark towel. So she was learning as she was doing it. Oops, let me go back. Yeah. So Janet said that caring for Spinner was a turning point for her. She said that her understanding of end-of-life care really started when she helped take care of Spinner's body. And she said that it will help her understand care of a human now that she's had the junior course with our dog. And that is a point that I'd like to emphasize, that caring for an animal is a perfect, in their death, is a perfect place to help people get ready for, get used to what it's going to be like to care for somebody, a person in their life when they die. So it's like a training ground, as it was for Janet. And that's why I think talking to people about pet home funerals is so important, such a segue into caring for our own. Shortly after Spinner's death and home funeral, Janet acted as an active health, durable power of attorney for a close friend, helping her plan after-death care, choosing a mortuary for cremation, and investigating green burial. So Janet just dove in right after that. She had trouble finding a place to bury Spinner because the earth around her was very hard, rock and clay. She dug 8 test holes, then went into an open hillside that had small streams from mountain springs and followed a deer trail. Her intuition was guiding her. She thought she had found the spot, but realized that it could flood if ever we got out of the drought, which we did last year. We had oodles and oodles of rain and got out of our drought, so she was right. So she followed her nose, intuition, and found a carefully built bridge across the small stream. You can see it in the lower left corner. It was guarded by a scarecrow. That led to a small protected area surrounded by trees. So here's Spinner in the earth, flowers and feathers from her home funeral. The roots are ready to help her transform. I had images later of the roots weaving around her and forming a cocoon. Her shroud is a pillowcase from Sally's grandmother, who died in 1963. There was hand-worked detail along the edges. And there you can see she covered her with rocks at the midpoint of burial. We weren't sure about coyotes disturbing her grave. We then filled in the rest of the grave, and then more rocks to protect the grave. Evening shadows of surrounding trees stand sentinel. So that is, and the cove of trees with her burial site. The mountain stream gurgling to the right calmed us. It accompanied me as I dug the grave. Digging was very primal. I was aware of how physical grief is, and this helped me express it. Spinner's gone. Her collar and some fur remain. Her tag is on our home altar. Our new dog, Lucy, wears the collar, a third-generation dog. Having Spinner at home reminded me of Guy Fieri's comment about Morgan. I didn't want Spinner to go to a cold, dark place by herself. We were with her while her spirit left. She didn't hang around long. We kept her at home for 3 days. And that is it. Yeah, that's it. So thank you, Sally. I wanted her to be here to read this herself, but she sent this beautiful slideshow for us to see. So this is just one way of honoring. Do you want to go ahead and put Richard Matkin, who some of you might have seen a couple of slides. Okay. So Richard Matkin, or why don't we have Shauna come up? real quick and tell her story. Is she here?
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you, yeah, pull this up. Shauna has a little pet story to tell you.
Thank you. So I had 2 hedgehogs, and my first one's name was Little Kush, and I
Okay, don't move.
held him during his last breath, and I didn't know what to do with him. I wanted to make him his own casket, so while I was still preparing, I wrapped him up and put him in the freezer, and that lasted for 3 months, so he was in there for quite a bit. And I kept going to craft stores and looking for the perfect box, and wanted it to be biodegradable, but I couldn't find anything, and I fell in love with this box. And so when my second hedgehog, Gristle, passed away, I found a matching box for her, and we're going to pull up some pictures now of her. So I just added the little pallbearer handles to it, and gave her a nice essential oil bath with the towels like we've been seeing. And so I kind of like that they're in non-biodegradable boxes, so I can dig them up and relocate them to my green burial cemetery that I'm going to open up for pets. So I'm kind of excited about that.
Can you do it that way? No.
I know.
Okay. Otherwise, we need Tim if he's here. Up, please. No. Okay. No. Come up. Yes. Yes.
Oh, yes.
There it is. That's the box, yeah?
That is the box.
So go to the next one.
Yeah, so I used the same gold silk for both of them inside with a little pillow underneath. And there she is.
How big is that, Shauna?
About 10 inches, maybe a little less than a foot.
Can that work biodegradable?
No, it's not. I'm going to relocate her
Okay.
and then just put her in the ground. And there she is.
There she is.
Yay.
That's it.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Claire, do you want to come up and tell your story about this amazing story Claire has to tell? Of this was a memorial service that you were? Yeah. And then you set it up with Richard.
This is slightly different because this is for a person who died at the end of July, and her family had been told that she was likely to die in December, and I rushed to their house to help her prepare for the home funeral. And Marjorie was in her 90s, and her daughters had been very traumatized by the death of their father 37 years before, and they weren't sure about a home funeral, but we talked about it and we got things ready. And really I was on standby. But Marjorie didn't die, and in fact she didn't die until July, so almost 8 months later. And her daughters had been caring for her at home through night and day all that time. They had given her the most exquisite care, so beautiful, so loving and so gentle. And when she died, we had a ceremony for her at the crematorium. And one of her daughters spoke the eulogy. And we were all together in the crematorium. And Dorothy was talking. She didn't think she was going to be able to speak, but she actually spoke for about 15 minutes. And it was the most beautiful ceremony. And while she was talking, she spoke about how her mother had loved dogs and the dogs that they'd had, and gone through them all, and everybody was remembering, and it was very, very special. And she got to the final part of her ceremony. I mean, we were in there for an hour and a half, but she got to the final part of her ceremony, and where she said she was about to say the final goodbyes to her mother and what her mother had meant to her, when all of a sudden, from ran into the crematorium, a dog. And this dog was the friendliest dog you could ever imagine. It came straight to Dorothy, wagging its tail. It went to all the family members. It was just like one of those moments that absolutely everybody just stopped and knew that this was very, very special. And had it come in at any other time, it wouldn't have had the same grace that this particular moment had. And we were just completely in awe. And the dog, nobody was calling it. We had no idea where it came from. It was the friendliest, waggiest tail dog. Just came in, ran around everybody, and then ran out. And it was just in this perfect moment. And I think, you know, our animals are such a part of us. You know, some people often see butterflies or Jerrigrace dragonflies, but in this case, the family truly believed that they had been given a sign, and the sign was a dog. So I just thought I'd share that with you.
Yay. Thank you. Amazing stories. So this is a little slideshow and movie that Rich Matkins made. He's one of our graduates. And this is on YouTube, so you can refer to it if you want to show somebody what a pet home funeral looks like. And this is his dog Dino, the Doberman, who we had for a long time.
This is our boy Dino, who died on Monday afternoon, and he has been in our garden guest room, lying in honor, packed on Techni ice. And it's so simple to put underneath the animal's body, changing the ice out every 12 hours. And this whole process of creating an honoring altar is so organic. If I shared photos from day one, the whole evolution of love that keeps pouring in for this animal has been incredible. The flowers just add to the beauty of his departure this time of year. Tomorrow morning, we will pack Dino up in the SUV and drive him to White Eagle in Goldendale, Washington, which is a cemetery for humans who are interested in green burial. And green burial just simply means without a concrete coffin liner, the hardware of metal caskets. So humans are wrapped in shrouds or in a simple pine box and buried 3.5, 4 feet deep at this cemetery. And on the perimeter of White Eagle, they have areas for pets. And Paul and I were out there in November looking really specifically on what green burial looks like. And since I'm a home care funeral consultant, I thought rather than going cremation, this just seems to be the right thing to return Dino to the earth. I can't stress enough how this has been just so healing for us to not give him up to the vet when they came to the house and we made the decision to put him down. It just breaks my heart thinking that I would have had to have said goodbye to him at 4 o'clock on Monday afternoon. This whole process has been so lovely to have friends and family pop by and continue to love and admire Dino and to give Paul and I the support that we also need. And grieving in our culture is just such an isolated event in this Western modern world where it's easier just to pay for somebody to take care of it, when really traditional funerals are what our ancestors did long before corporate funeral homes took over and really kept our hearts out of it. And so this whole process with humans and animals doing home funerals, for us, hands down, it just is such a different experience. So thank you, and what a blessing it has been to have little Dino in our life for just shy of 13 years. So thank you so much, Deanie. I love you. I love you. I love you.
So, thanks to Rich, who couldn't be here either, but has sent us that gift. Are there any questions at this point, or any comments on the last two films? Yes?
Wonderful. It's interesting, people have been calling me about pet funerals, which I never considered, so this is wonderful. And the question is, I don't have a cat, I'm not a cat person, do you give cats a bath also? Because you don't give the cat a bath in life, do you?
Yeah, well, again, like humans, animals do release anything in the bladder, may have some purge, and you certainly want to wash their fur, wash them. Some cats actually do like water. I've known a few that like being under the sink water as it's pouring down. But yes, I think it's still a beautiful ritual, washing that you can do ceremonially, sacredly. Yes?
Did you notice, I just noticed up here, up on the Olympic covenant for them on that day, with the animals of the field, the birds of the sky, and the figures of the earth. It's beautiful. Saying
Mm-hmm. It truly is. It truly is. So, yes.
So, I'm so glad you asked that question because I was also wondering about cats. Would you blow dry after washing them?
You could towel dry them. You can blow dry. There, like with humans, there really isn't any right or wrong as long as you're not injuring the person's body or the animal's body. There's nothing that says you can't use a hair dryer on human hair, on animal fur, or you can just towel dry them and let them dry naturally. I don't think it's going to hurt either way. Yes?
No, if there are laws that are any different, we were told that they couldn't take a dog home because they were euthanized. That they could not be buried in the backyard because they were euthanized.
Because they were euthanized. And what state are you in?
New Hampshire.
New Hampshire.
We can bury people in our backyards. We were told we could not bring the dog home.
Wow.
By the vet, so I don't know what the law was, but the vet said if we euthanize, they have to be cremated.
And they didn't say why.
They said that was what the law was, and at the time I didn't look into it.
I know
Okay.
in the UK, so this is obviously not going to different states here, but in the UK, it's a lot harder, a lot more complicated, and a lot more regulation for animals than it is for people.
Interesting. So Claire just said that in the UK, it's a lot more complicated and difficult to bury animals than it is humans. So I think that you would need to check the laws in your state, because it sounds like it's going to vary from state to state. And also, my guess is that it's going to vary depending on where you live, if you're more urban or if you live out in the country, because I'm sure that people out in the country with farm animals do home burial all the time. Or if they're small animals, we live right in town, but Jack's, we did a green burial for Jack's right on our property. He was a small cat. So I think a lot of people have pet cemeteries right on their land.
Cassandra does as well, and there's an image of her horse.
Yes, yeah. I mentioned that Cassandra did home funerals with her horse, with her, with dogs, all kinds of animals. She had a large dog that she also probably has on YouTube. And Christine from New Zealand. I don't know if you have that. But one thing we wanted to show that we thought was kind of humorous. It's not working, okay. Having some problems with this Wi-Fi here. We were gonna show you that there was recently, I don't know if you saw it going around on YouTube, but there was a new ordinance in New York that said that dogs could not be taken on a subway unless they could be carried, unless they were in a bag of some kind. And residents of New York who love their dogs and want to take them wherever they go and ride the subway came up with some very clever ways of taking their dogs with them. If Mark can find it, he will. But they came up with creative bags where they stuck the legs through the bag and had handles on them and put them in backpacks. Even these just big, giant dogs, they were putting them in backpacks and taking them. And it's really funny if we can find it, which just, it just shows you how important our animals are to us. At this time, I'd love to invite anybody else who has a great, has anybody else done a pet home funeral? Yes, several of you. You've done two. Do you want to come up and just share for just short shares? Because there's several hands that went up.
Okay,
We'd love
thank
to
you.
hear some stories.
Sure.
Yeah?
My name is Lori. I'm from Las Vegas. My mom died 4 years ago, and we held a home funeral for her, and this was the first time I heard about home funerals. But after that, I had two pets die. First, a beloved cat that was about 14. And so I decided that since the home funeral for my mom was so beautiful, we would do it for him as well. And so I did. It was much like the film. I did wash him with Young Living lavender wash and the thieves oil and whatnot. I may have, somebody had a question about the blowing dry. I might have blown him dry because he was a long-haired cat. For my Chihuahua short hair, I didn't. I just let him air dry. But then again, I wasn't really dousing him. But of course, there was some poop and there was some leak. A good thing about the dark towel, yes, I used dark towel. I didn't. I had white. Then shortly, my husband just died 29 weeks ago, so that's a little bit raw still. But I had a home funeral for him as well. But right before he died, my dog died. So I had a home funeral for him as well. And so I had two family members and two pets, but it was healing, of course, for the family members, but it was very healing for the pets as well. Very healing for me. I had the pets for a long time. They were very old. And so I kept them at home for a couple of days. I had them laid in their little beds and with some rose petals and, told them that I loved them and how important they were. And I opted for, not a green burial, but I opted for a witness cremation both times because we had done that for another cat, so I just kind of wanted that continuity. But I recommend it. It's very, very healing. Very healing. I was able to rock them in the rocker at night after work, when they died for those couple of nights. And so anyway, thanks for letting me share.
Yeah. Thank you. And Josh was telling me last night that he just had a couple of cats die recently, 3 in fact. And he just said how he has never actually attended a human home funeral. So these cats were like that for him, his initiation, and he said how not only important for his healing, but also for his other animals. When one died, the others could go and sniff and smell and nudge and use their, get up close to them and know that something had changed, something big had transformed. And they were searching the house for the other animals. They didn't just disappear. So he recognized how important that was for the other animals that might be at home. To have that opportunity to smell them. And most of us probably have seen some of the YouTube of elephants who have such strong memories. That there was a story about the elephants traveling days to go back. Do you remember that? Yeah, because they sense. They're so intuitive. They sense, and they have such incredible memories. When one of their animal tribe elephants in their grouping has died, or the people they've met. There was a person they met, and they went there. They traveled for days to mourn the person who had cared for them. That's what the story was. And so they go through a big ritual of mourning, and they spent several days there before they left. So I thought, yes, come up, Lucinda.
Do we have time for that?
Yes, please, come up. I don't have any idea what time it is, actually. But come.
So I wanted to say that we had a dog, my father had a dog called Happy New Year, because we found him on New Year's Eve. And he was a beloved mongrel, really. But I wanted to share that we knew we had to put him down. I happened to be at home in Alabama with my father. And so I actually built an altar like this, one after death, in order for Happy New Year to lie on it when the vet came to euthanize him. And I just wanted to bring that because it was so deeply comforting to my father. He didn't want to put him down, but just to create that kind of beauty and altar so that he could be put down within that beauty. That made a huge difference, and the vet was so moved by that. He said it was the most special experience he'd had coming to a house. So just to keep in mind that you can do it before also. And then when my father died, he was such a dog person. We had a home funeral for him in the front room in the log cabin in Alabama, and we were around the casket, my whole family. And actually, for the 3 days of the vigil, his special dog, Joy, slept under the casket, would never leave my father's side. And when we were having the really departure ritual, before Papa, we were going to take him to the crematorium, we were singing, and the door burst open, and all of our family dogs, there were 6 of them, came rushing in, a bit like Claire's story, came rushing, although we knew them, rushing in, and they went round and round the casket in their own experience. It was so incredible. And then when we took my father out, all the men of the family carried him out, and we put him in the van. I was going to drive Papa to the crematorium. Joy was with all the other 6 dogs, and the 6 dogs just completely on their own stopped, and Joy went forward, the one who had slept under Papa's casket, and jumped up on the casket in the van and rode with Papa all the way to the crematorium. Yeah. So just to know how much, animals want and need to be part of human vigils as well.
Wow, what a story.
Yeah. I've had some of the home funerals that I've attended. There was one where they had a dog, and the dog just sat vigil at the bedside of the person who had died. and just stayed right there. So they know what's going on. They're really in tune with the person that they love so much. And they sense something has shifted, but it's so great to have them there to really also have that time that we humans need as well to adjust to the change. It's interesting, this brings me back to my friend Carolyn who died, that I started out telling you about. She had a cat named Amber, and her friend Norma, who was in charge of guiding us through this first home funeral experience I had, wasn't sure. She wanted to be positive that Carolyn wasn't going to come back into her body. She said she read too many Edgar Allan Poe stories. And so she was asking her guides or spirit to show her a sign that Carolyn was really gone and she wasn't going to rise up. And just then, Carolyn's cat, Amber, came into the room and walked right over. Carolyn was lying on the floor on a futon, and Amber walked right up to Carolyn's body and then walked right over Carolyn's body and kept going. And she knew that was a sign that Carolyn's spirit was definitely gone, because otherwise Amber probably would have curled up next to her. So that was letting her know spirit had that way. And we, by the way, have had many, I don't know about you, but we've had many insects particularly, but birds, insects, all different animals have been sent to the family members as messengers when someone dies. I don't know how, maybe it's just how spirit moves through them, whether the person's spirit themselves who's crossed over is able to manipulate, but we've had, we came back from washing the body of our friend Nancy, and there was a praying mantis sitting right in our doorstep looking into our house. And it was just sitting there with its little prayer hands up. And I just felt like, I couldn't help but feel like it was a message from Nancy saying thank you, you know, as we crossed the doorstep. We've had a tarantula come to our doorstep. And this was during earlier days. We had just cared for this woman, Donna, who was 32. And I thought that was so strange that this big tarantula spider had come to the door. I hadn't seen them around. And the next day at her service, her husband was saying she loved biology and they'd never get very far on walks because she'd want to talk about all the plants and identify all the insects and so forth. And so I heard this story, and I went up to her husband afterwards and I said, there was a tarantula that came up to our doorstep last night after we bathed Donna. And he said, oh yeah, Donna loved tarantulas. She had a pet tarantula. She loved them. And I said, well, then we tried to kind of make it go away. Like we get the broom and kind of nudge it away from the door, and it just like, no, I'm not going. And I told him that, and he said, well, Donna could be very stubborn at times. So he felt like it was definitely a message from her. And then he told me that several other people had told him stories about birds and other animals that had come to bring messages. So we've gotten messages in just every different form of bird and different things connected. Yes?
Could I just share something?
Sure, please come on up.
Speaking of, kind of taking off on that and what Lucinda just said.
Yes.
Hi. I'm Hannah, and I'm a life cycle celebrant, and one of the things that we cover in celebrancy training is pet funerals and pet memorials. And one of the things that was really moving to me in that training was to hear about celebrants who work with people and with vets, both when the vets come to the house to euthanize and then in the veterinary hospital, and sharing moments of reflection or remembrance before the vet administers the euthanasia, and that being a moving experience for the people as well as for the vet. And so when Lucinda said that about building the altar, I just wanted to share that too, that can also be something, as we're working with people in this arena, that they can bring into that if they're in the room with the vet when that is happening, to ask for a couple of minutes and share some things, because the feedback from vets is that this is something that they do all the time and they don't always get to know who the animals are beforehand, and so it's moving for them as well as for the humans. So just
Excellent.
wanted to share that.
Thank you. Yes, ceremony with our animals is equally important, and making it a very sacred situation, which I think we saw in both Sally and Rich's films, is that they were really honoring their pets in the way we like to honor our loved one, whether it's with poems or song or telling stories about them. And what a lovely thing to let the vet know more about this animal and what's, so they really have some sense of this animal spirit. I love that continuity. Thank you. As Lee said in the very beginning of this conference, all of the wisdom is right here in this circle. We all know this intuitively. And it's just beautiful, though, to see how different people honor their beloveds. Was there a different story? I saw a number of hands go up. Was there any other stories? Yes, come on out. Did you find it? Oh, Mark found the dogs. Well, come on up here. We'll show you. This is really quick. This is the funny dogs are not allowed in New York City subways anymore, but people don't care. So what do we do? Just hit. Oh, there we go. A little bit higher. More, higher. No. There you go.
That was fun. Hi, my name's Carrie. I'm from New York, and I know I told some of you this story, but I just still wanted to share it. I'm a golden person, I'm a golden retriever, and one of my goldens, Chloe, died young. She was only 7 years and had lymphoma, and I had to put her down, and taking her to the vet, putting her on that sterile table to have her put down was extremely hard. So then I got another golden after that, Chloe, and she gave us 15 wonderful years. And when she got sick and we had to put her down because her stomach was filling with fluids and it was just time, I went to the internet and said, there's got to be a vet who will come to our home, because I couldn't bear the thought of having to go through that again. And also my dog did not like to go to the vet. She knew when we were doing that trip and she'd start to tremble, and I couldn't bear to put the end of her life be so frightening. So I was so happy I found a vet who came to our home, and I have 3 children who are older, 13 and 18 and 20, and we were able to all sit around her. We had her comfortably on her dog bed. We were sat in a circle. We all said our final goodbyes, and it was just so much more peaceful. And my son, we're lucky enough to have a Kubota, so my son dug a hole for Chloe, and we did bury her in one of her own blankets. So it was just such a different experience.
Wow, thank you. Let me see what time it is.
Jerrigrace?
Yes. We're at time, I think. Yes?
I just want to say my best friend had to euthanize her dog last week, and it was very hard for her, terribly hard decision. But the vet came to the house and gave the dog a homeopathic for separating the body and the soul, and was really thoughtful. And I loved hearing from the person who said that doing ceremony with the vet, there's another place where we just spread the word of sacred passages. So.
Right. Right. So using all the ways in which we treat humans to help them cross over, it can be used certainly with animals. We've heard about essential oils today. We've heard about homeopathic treatments. I'm going to leave you with this recommendation, and that is that you speak to your animal if you are going to put it down. That you talk to them just as though they understand English perfectly. That you explain what's going to happen, because I believe animals really do understand, and they're much calmer and much more accepting if they know what's going to happen, and that you're doing this from a very loving place in your heart. And if you stay with them and you hold them and you just pour love into them, that it will be much, much easier for them to cross over and to be at peace. And I thank you for today. But since we don't have time to go around, I would just like to take my bell, and if everybody would just see if my bell's over here. Let's see. Yes. If everybody would just say the name. All together, say the names of your animals as I ring my bell that have crossed over, and send them love. Everybody at once. Tico and Tippy. Jax and Je suis. May the spirit of these animals feel the love from their humans. And may the humans give gratitude for all the love and all the lessons they received from their beloved animals. May we all walk this earth together in harmony and in peace. May people everywhere wake up to the fact that animals are intelligent, loving beings and deserve the same loving care that all humans do. So be it, and so it is. Thank you.